The stars on his shoulders used to command armies, but here in Harrison Falls, they only made him a target. General Elijah Brooks barely had time to react before Sergeant Riggs slammed him against his SUV, right beside Pump 3 at Murphy's Gas. And go. The only mistake, Riggs hissed, yanking the cuffs tight, was thinking you belonged here. Elijah did not resist, not yet. 20 years ago, he dismantled Colonel Dorian Vance's rogue Black Ops unit for targeting minorities. In doing so, he made a quiet, patient enemy, and today, Elijah had just walked into his trap. From the back of the patrol car, he pressed one button on a secure military phone. Initiate Falcon lock, he whispered. He did not see the mayor watching the feed from a back office texting. He's in. He did not hear the alert pinging at the Pentagon, where Colonel Dana Winters stared at her screen in horror. They triggered him. To any passerby, it looked like simple small-town racism. But this was the opening move in a far more dangerous game. Hours earlier, the sun blazed over the quiet roads of Virginia. Elijah's SUV rolled past faded barns and old mailboxes. Gone was the uniform, replaced with jeans and a blue t-shirt. His stars, his rank, all tucked away. This was supposed to be a break, a fishing trip, a few days to breathe. The GPS blinked. 2 hours left to his uncle's cabin. But the fuel gauge blinked red. He spotted a crooked sign for Murphy's Gas and go and pulled in. The station was small, unremarkable. Cracked pavement, faded posters, a single-story shop with dusty windows, just another roadside stop. As he stepped out, 2 men by a pickup stared too long before driving away. Elijah had seen that look before. Suspicion, calculation. He logged it and moved on. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. The clerk behind, the counter watched him with narrowed eyes. The stitched name tag read, Frank. Elijah grabbed a bottle of water and walked to the counter. Just passing through? Frank asked, not touching the register. Yes. Headed to Miller's Point. Some fishing, Elijah replied. Polite, calm. Frank glanced out the window. Been parked there a while, no gas. I was checking my map, planning to fill up before I go. Elijah placed a $5 bill on the counter. After a beat, Frank rang up the water. Folks around here notice things. The warning was clear. Elijah took his change, thanked him, and walked out. At the pump, he swiped his card. As gas flowed, he spotted Frank inside, on the phone, watching him. Elijah felt the shift. The energy in the air thickened. He knew the rules. Pick your battles. This one was not worth it. Then came the sirens. 2 cruisers screamed into the lot, boxing in his vehicle. 3 officers stepped out, hands on their holsters. The lead one wore sunglasses and a nameplate. Sergeant Riggs. Hands where I can see them, Riggs barked. Elijah's hands were already visible. Is there a problem, officer? Got a call. Suspicious activity. Need ID. Elijah moved slowly, calmly. May I ask what? ID first. Questions later. The female officer, James, hovered nearby. Young, tense, watching. Elijah handed over his military ID and license. General Elijah Brooks, U.S. Army. I am on leave. Riggs barely glanced at it. General, huh? What brings you here? I told you. Family cabin, 2 hours north. Riggs' posture changed. Not respect. Something colder. Step away from the vehicle. I have identified myself. May I ask? Now. Elijah obeyed. 27 years in the army had taught him the difference between standing tall and staying alive. Face the car, hands on the hood. He complied. James shifted her stance, uncertain. Her voice was low. His ID checks out, Sergeant. I do not care. If he is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Riggs muttered. We got a call. We check it out. He leaned in. Spread your legs. As Riggs searched him, Elijah stayed composed. This is harassment, Elijah said quietly. I have done nothing. Riggs growled, questioning me. That sounds like resistance. The cuffs snapped shut. You are making a mistake, Elijah warned. Riggs leaned in, his breath hot. The only mistake is thinking you belong here. And as Elijah was shoved into the patrol car, one thought gripped his mind. This was no random stop. This was the opening shot. Place your hands on the hood, Sergeant Riggs barked. Elijah obeyed without hesitation. The metal felt hot beneath his palms. His mind, however, remained cool and focused, already running calculations, escape routes, legal angles, psychological profiles. He had commanded entire divisions, overseen billion-dollar missions, but none of that mattered here. Not in Harrison Falls, not to Riggs. Here, he was not a general. He was a black man in cuffs. Behind him, Officer James's voice cracked the air like a thread of conscience. His military ID checks out, Sergeant. He really is a general. I do not care if he is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Riggs growled, tightening the search. We got a call. We follow up. Spread your legs, he ordered next. The wham, pat-down was excessive, slow, personal. Elijah did not flinch. Sergeant, this is harassment. I have committed no crime. You questioning my authority? Riggs snapped. That sounds like resistance. He twisted Elijah's arms and snapped on the cuffs with unnecessary force. You are making a mistake, Elijah said through clenched teeth. Riggs leaned in, breath thick with aggression. The only mistake was thinking you belonged here. Officer, James shifted, visibly disturbed. But before she could act, Riggs was already dragging Elijah toward the patrol car. This is not protocol, she muttered under her breath. As Riggs shoved him into the back seat, Elijah spoke calmly. My phone. I am entitled to one call. Riggs hesitated, then reached into Elijah's pocket, pulling out a small black smartphone. It was not an ordinary phone. It was military-issued, encrypted. You get one call, Riggs said, passing it through the bars before slamming the door shut. Inside the cruiser, Elijah turned his head, blocking the security camera's angle. He dialed a number from memory. Security desk, came a clipped voice. This is Brooks, Elijah said quietly. Initiate Falcon Lock. Send it up the chain. Understood, sir. Falcon Lock initiated. The call ended just as Riggs climbed into the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, their eyes met. Riggs smirked. Elijah stared back, unreadable, unwavering. Outside, above the gas station, a camera swiveled silently, capturing it all, and, in a dark back office nearby, Mayor Howard Wilson watched the footage with a smirk of his own. He sipped from a chipped mug and typed a single message into his phone. He's in. Across the country, inside the Pentagon's secure E-ring, a silent alert appeared on Colonel Dana Winter's terminal. Falcon Lock activated. She froze. The code had not been used in over a decade. It meant one of their top officers was in danger, and had no access to official defense channels. Oh no, she whispered. Her fingers raced across the keyboard, checking the location ping. Harrison Falls, Virginia. They triggered him, she said aloud. It's happening. Winters reached for her secure line, already scanning response protocols. The local incident had just exploded into a national security crisis. Minutes later, Colonel Winters stormed through the Pentagon's steel corridors. Officers stepped aside instinctively, sensing urgency in her every stride. She burst into a restricted conference room where Admiral Karen Lutz waited, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun. He triggered Falcon Lock, Winters said without ceremony. She placed a tablet on the polished table. Elijah Brooks, just arrested in Harrison Falls. Lutz's eyes narrowed. Her grip on her coffee cup tightened. Coincidence? You know better, Winters replied. That town has been on our watch list ever since those militia recruitment videos surfaced. Winters tapped her screen. And Brooks, he filed for leave, said he was heading to the Blue Ridge Mountains. He was never supposed to be anywhere near Harrison Falls. Lutz's voice dropped. Any chatter from the old players? Winters hesitated, then revealed another screen. That is why I needed to see you. Brooks was part of Obsidian Fence. Lutz straightened, reaction sharp. That name had not been spoken in years. A buried program, one designed to identify, monitor, and stress test high-performing minority officers, those who could one day change the system from the inside. I thought it was shut down, Lutz said slowly. We rebranded it, reorganized, but the bones stayed. Winters flipped to a personnel file, a younger Elijah in uniform. He was the gold standard. Brilliant, disciplined. They built the algorithm around him. Lutz leaned forward, the implications forming. And now he is sitting in a small town. Cell. Worse, Winters said. I think someone wanted him there. At Harrison Falls Police Station, Elijah sat upright on the metal bench of a holding cell. Calm, still, watching. His ID and belongings sat in a plastic bin outside, labeled Brooks. Sergeant Riggs scribbled at his desk, dragging out paperwork. So, General, Riggs sneered. How are the accommodations? Up to Pentagon standards? Elijah said nothing. His silence was a weapon. You military types think you're above the law. Special rules, Riggs muttered. I have broken no laws, Elijah replied at last. And I have asked for no special treatment. You made a call, Riggs snapped. Who was it to? Your friends in Washington? Elijah held his gaze. He did not need to answer. At that moment, Officer James walked in, holding a file. Sergeant, the report is processed. But, she hesitated. There's still no clear charge listed. Suspicious behavior and resisting, Riggs said, avoiding eye contact. James opened the file. Sir, the body cam shows no resistance, and suspicious behavior needs actual observation. Riggs's eyes burned. Write it up as I told you. James paused, then nodded. And in that moment, he knew he had found an ally. Write it up like I said, Officer James, Riggs ordered sharply, eyes hard behind his sunglasses. Unless you want traffic duty for the next month. James hesitated, tension pulling at her features. Yes, sir, she replied stiffly. She returned to her desk, but not before glancing once more at General Elijah Brooks. And in that quiet look, he understood. He had found an ally, reluctant, but real. As James settled behind her, terminal, her eyes flicked toward Elijah again. Something about him struck her as different. Not anxious, not angry, focused, calculating. She watched as his gaze moved slowly across the room. Exit signs, cameras, officers, patterns. He was not reacting, he was analyzing. Elijah Brooks was already preparing his counterattack. Outside the station, a black SUV sat idling across the street. No movement inside. Its windows were tinted far darker than legal limits. Inside, unnoticed by all except Elijah, the station's security cameras flickered. Black screens for 5 seconds, then back on. Each monitor in sequence. He tracked every one with trained precision. The game had begun. Hundreds of miles away, Angela Brooks was reviewing a legal brief when a distinct vibration came from her secure phone. Not her work device. This one only rang under one condition: an emergency linked to her husband. She stood, closing her office door as she answered. This is Angela. It's Winters, came the urgent voice. Elijah has been detained. Harrison Falls, Virginia. Local police. Angela's jaw tightened. Racial profiling? That is the cover. He is in danger. Real danger. This is not just race, it is revenge. Angela was already opening her secure laptop. Explain. Not over this line. A file will hit your secure email in 3 minutes. You will have one chance to read it, then it deletes itself. Angela paused. Should I be afraid? There was silence on the other end, then a heavy answer. Be prepared. It goes deeper than either of us ever knew. The call ended. Angela sat motionless, staring at her screen until a file appeared. The sender name made her stomach tighten. Midas Secure Drop. Midas was not a person. It was a hacker collective that worked in the shadows between legality and necessity. If Midas was involved, the situation had already bypassed official protocols. She opened the file. There were dozens of documents, intelligence memos, internal memos, surveillance logs. At the center of it all was a buried project, Obsidian Fence, and on one page, a kill list. Elijah's name was circled in red. A message popped into her secure chat window. Midas. It is payback. Midas. Your husband dismantled the 22nd Tactical. Midas. They have been waiting 20 years. Midas. Harrison Falls is just the trigger. Angela's lawyer instincts kicked in instantly. She needed leverage, access, and above all, time. She picked up a phone number she had not used in years. After 3 rings, a polished voice answered. Senator. Chase's office. This is Angela Brooks. Tell Arlen it is about Obsidian Fence. He has 2 minutes to take this call. 10 seconds later. Angela, this is unexpected. Save it, she snapped. You tried to block my husband's 3rd star. Now you're going to help me save his life. That is a big accusation. Angela cut him off. I have the original authorization documents for Obsidian Fence. Your signature is right there, approving racial profiling filters for high-ranking black officers. How would that look in a CNN headline? The pause that followed was all the confirmation she needed. What do you want? Chase asked coldly. Pentagon clearance, all Obsidian fence files, and a congressional inquiry into Harrison Falls PD, starting in the next hour. You are playing a dangerous game, Angela. No. Arlen. Someone else started this game with my husband. I am just changing the rules. Back at the station, Officer James could not shake her unease. The arrest felt wrong. The paperwork was weak. Riggs had used unnecessary force, and worse, he had seemed to enjoy it. When Riggs stepped out for a smoke break, she slipped into the evidence room. The system was outdated, but the body cam footage was still fresh, stored for 48 hours before upload. She pulled up the feed. Elijah had been calm, cooperative. Riggs had escalated. The resistance only happened after the cuffs. Her hand trembled as she saved the footage to a personal encrypted drive, something outside department control. What she was doing could cost her everything. But what Riggs had done? That was not law enforcement. That was something darker. As the file upload finished, her eyes caught a folder on Riggs's desk, a black insignia, a fence wrapped around, a military rank. She snapped a photo before hurrying back to her desk. Night fell over Harrison Falls. Without explanation or apology, Elijah Brooks was released from his holding cell. No charges, no reasons, just a room key and a curt nod. Your SUV has been delivered to the town motel, the sergeant said. Courtesy of the department. Elijah did not reply. As he gathered his belongings, he noticed a folder behind the desk. Black fence. Military bars. He had seen that symbol before, and he knew exactly what it meant. Elijah knew exactly what the lack of apology meant. Someone higher up had made a call. He pocketed his belongings without a word, but one folder on the desk behind. The sergeant caught his eye. A symbol on the corner, a black fence encircling a military insignia, made his stomach turn. It was the same symbol Officer James had seen earlier, and one Elijah had hoped to never see again. It belonged to a covert Black Ops unit he had shut down years ago. A unit that had secretly targeted minority communities under the guise of national security. The same unit led by Dorian Vance. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around him like freedom, but it could not wash away what he had just seen. He paused, collected himself, and began walking toward the motel, 2 blocks down the road. As he crossed the street, he noticed the same black SUV. It was no longer parked. It was following. Slowly. Silently. Was it friend or foe? That line had blurred in the last 12 hours. At the motel, a faded one-story structure with a flickering neon sign, Elijah stepped inside his assigned room. It was small and basic. A bed, a desk, and a dated television. On the luggage rack sat his duffel bag, retrieved from his SUV. He checked his secure military phone. 3 missed calls from Angela, 2 from Winters, 1 from an unknown number. He would return them soon. But first, he needed to sweep the room. No bugs, no trackers, at least none he could see. In this era, surveillance did not need wires. He tapped a quick encrypted message to Angela. I'm safe. Will call in 30. Love you. Across town, deep. In a dim parking garage, Mayor Howard Wilson waited beside his sleek black sedan. His eyes darted nervously toward the entrance as echoing footsteps drew closer. You're late, Wilson said. A tall man stepped into view, his silhouette sharp even in civilian clothes. Politicians do not set my schedule, came the gravelly voice of Colonel Dorian Vance. His presence was unmistakable. Once a top name in military intelligence, Vance had vanished from public record after a dishonorable discharge 15 years ago. But he had never truly disappeared. He had simply moved into the shadows. Did you get what you needed? Wilson asked, voice low. Vance gave a hollow smile. Brooks performed exactly as I expected. Calculated, controlled, even humiliated. He thinks like a general. That is what makes him dangerous. He pulled out a cigarette, but did not light it. And that is why he has to be broken, not just defeated. Wilson cleared his throat. Yastritis is already handled. He is the final piece, Vance said. We break Brooks now, and the rest will fall like dominoes. He finally lit the cigarette. The ember glowed, casting flickers across his face. 20 years, he said, exhaling smoke. He took everything from me. My command, my name, My future. Now I take his. Wilson shifted, uncomfortable. And my payment? Vance reached into his coat, produced a flash drive, and held it out. Everything I promised. Dirt on your rivals, and federal grant approvals your donors are begging for. Wilson grabbed it, but Vance did not let go right away. Remember this agreement, he warned. When things explode, and they will, you never knew me. You never heard of Obsidian Fence. And your town. It was never the trigger. He released the drive. Wilson nodded stiffly and turned to go. As he drove off, lightning flashed in the distance. For 1 second, it lit up the garage. Vance stood alone in the dark. At the motel, Elijah's war had already begun. Maps of Harrison Falls covered one wall, each marked with red pins. Surveillance angles, patrol patterns, key buildings. The desk was buried in notes, files, and a burner phone. The civilian disguise was gone. He was a general again. 36 hours had passed since his release. 36 hours of quiet preparation. Now, from the most overlooked corner of town, he was building a counter-offensive. A soft knock on the door. 3 taps. A pause. 2 more. It was a code they had agreed on. Elijah checked the peephole, then opened the door. Marcus Reynolds, Darius Taylor. Both men entered quickly. Once part of his covert unit, now private security consultants, they worked in the shadows, off books and untouchable. Good to see you in one piece, sir, Marcus said, tall and lean, eyes scanning the room. Elijah nodded. What are we looking at? Darius stepped forward, heavier set with sharp eyes. He placed a thumb drive on the table. It's worse than we thought. He plugged it in. Town records show military contractor money being funneled through fake companies into Harrison Falls infrastructure. Shell companies tied to who? Elijah asked, though he already knew. Darius tapped the screen. No names. But the routing numbers. Match accounts linked to Vance's old ops in South America. Elijah looked up, his expression hardening. So it had begun. Same signature. Different continent, Marcus said. Elijah nodded slowly. The puzzle. Pieces were fitting too well. He is not just targeting me, he is building something here. Harrison Falls is not a trap, it is a base. Before they could continue, Elijah's secure phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Park Bench, 3rd Street, 10 minutes. Come alone. Officer J.G. held the phone up. We have a local source. With respect, sir, Darius said. This could be a trap. Everything is a trap, Elijah replied, until it isn't. But James is our best lead inside the department. Cover me. The morning air was crisp as Elijah walked the quiet streets of Harrison Falls. The sidewalks were empty. Too empty. He scanned rooftops, corners, windows. 3 security cameras tracked the street. That was more than usual for a town this size. He entered the small park. There she was. Officer Emily James. Alone. Uniform still on, but a civilian jacket over it. She looked up nervously as Elijah approached. Thank you for coming, she said. You are taking a risk, Officer James. So are you. She slid a USB drive under the bench. That has body cam footage, 2 weeks of patrol schedules, and something else. He glanced at her. Riggs meets with someone at the old mill. Every Tuesday at midnight. Same man keeps. Visiting Mayor Wilson, tall, scar from his eye to his jaw. Elijah's eyes narrowed. Vance. Riggs is recruiting, she added. Ex-military with anger issues. He is giving them badges. Why help me? James swallowed. My brother served in the 82nd, came home with PTSD. The system failed him. But his commander didn't. That commander spoke of you, said you never left a man behind. She stood. I'm not leaving you behind, sir. Elijah said nothing as she walked away. He palmed the USB and turned the opposite direction. She had just confirmed it. Harrison Falls was not just corrupt. It was being militarized. At Elijah's temporary command center, the motel room, Angela's face filled the screen. Behind her, journalist Reggie Mathisi studied a wall of documents. The money trail is solid, Angela reported. Over 30 million funneled into Harrison Falls through fake development projects, all from defense contractors who lost bids. After you changed procurement policy, Elijah asked, and the mayor? Broke 3 years ago, Reggie chimed in. Now has offshore accounts, 7 figures, right after he hired 5 ex-military cops, all with disciplinary records. Elijah's memory flashed back. North Africa, 20 years ago. Vance had been his deputy, sharp, cunning, and dangerous. During a routine mission, Elijah had uncovered Vance's side operation, targeting local leaders based on race. Then he saw Vance's plan to bring the same method home. He wanted a racial purge, Elijah said. First abroad, then here. Angela's voice hardened. This is not politics. This is about control. Vance thinks some people belong in charge, others beneath them. You challenge that. Now he wants to erase you. He is not just retaliating, Elijah said. He is building an army. That evening, Elijah moved through dense forest in all-black clothing. Marcus and Darius flanked him, weapons hidden under lightweight jackets. Officer James's intel had pointed them here. An unmarked dirt road led to a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Beyond it, a full compound. Elijah raised his binoculars. Men in civilian clothes trained in tactical formations. Instructors barked commands. Every movement screamed military precision. This is not just about me, Elijah whispered. They are building a militia. Sir, northeast corner, Darius said in his earpiece. Standard Pentagon issue, comms. Someone supplying them directly. Confirmed, Marcus added. These guys have defense-grade equipment. Elijah's phone buzzed. Message from Colonel Winters. Backdoor access detected in Pentagon biometric database. Vance has internal clearance. Kill list includes 12 officers who supported your reforms. Warning them now, be careful. Elijah lowered the phone. This is bigger than me, he said. It is a purge. We move now, he ordered. They turned back. A twig snapped behind them. Go, Elijah shouted. Gunfire exploded. They scattered, vanishing into the trees. By the time they regrouped at an abandoned barn near the edge of town, their faces were streaked with sweat and mud. They are organized, Marcus said, checking for trackers. And now they know we are here, Darius added. Elijah clenched his jaw. We accelerate the timeline. That night, in the shadows of the motel parking lot, Officer James waited. No patrol car, civilian clothes, a backpack clutched tight. They know, she said the moment Elijah approached. Riggs found spyware on his cruiser. He is hunting for the leak. I've been reassigned, she added, voice low. Desk duty, effective immediately. Elijah exhaled slowly. The noose was tightening. But now he knew who was pulling the rope. They might suspect me, James whispered. You need to get out of town, Elijah said immediately. She shook her head. Not yet. I needed to get this to you first. She handed him a flash drive. It is your file, the one they built to frame you. They have forged bank records, emails, even photos, to make it look like you embezzled military funds to support extremist groups. Elijah turned the drive in his hand. This is not just defamation. They are setting me up for treason. Back at the motel, the team gathered around the laptop. The files were terrifyingly convincing. Doctored images, fabricated wire transfers, sophisticated enough to fool even federal investigators. They have been building this for years, Angela said from the secure video line. This is not an impulse. This is a campaign. A knock silenced the room. Darius moved with weapon in hand. Marcus checked the live feed. The screen showed an elderly man in a fishing vest, standing alone. Elijah stepped forward. Jack Bennett. The old man entered after a tight security check. A former CIA analyst and expert in domestic threats, Bennett's eyes swept the room like a satellite. I heard you kick the hornet's nest, Brooks, Bennett said, settling into a chair. Thought you might need insurance. He placed a worn leather portfolio on the desk. Inside, dates, names, locations, all connected to setups just like Elijah's. Project Sentinel. Started as surveillance, Bennett explained. Evolved into sabotage. Vance did not create it. He inherited it, and he weaponized it. A silence fell. This was no longer personal. It was systemic. Elijah looked at the faces around him. Marcus and Darius, brothers in arms. Officer. James, bruised, betrayed, still standing. Angela, fighting through legal channels. Reggie, documenting truth for the world to see. This is bigger than any of us, Elijah said. This ends now, and it ends where it started. He turned to Angela. I want everything you can dig up on Vance, his ops, his team, his movements. This is not justice anymore, he said. This is war. Dawn broke over Harrison Falls. Elijah sat alone at the desk, scanning Sentinel's documents. One photo pulled him into the past. Afghanistan, 2003. Elijah, a young major. Vance, then a captain. Brilliant. Unstable. Dangerous. You're being groomed, Vance had said once, voice low in the barracks. They want you in command because you fit the picture, not because you are better. Elijah had dismissed it as bitterness, but years later, when Vance was passed over for leadership, the bitterness turned to poison. Angela's voice crackled through the line, yanking him back. Elijah! Something just arrived at the house. His posture straightened. Security protocol followed. Exactly. No explosives, no toxins. She paused. It is your silver star. Cut in half. With a note. One piece left to bury. Elijah's heart pounded. The message was clear. Vance wanted him dead. And he wanted Angela to see it coming. Tighten the perimeter, Elijah said. Do not be alone for even a second. Before she could answer, the door burst open. Officer James stumbled in, face bloodied, uniform disheveled. They know, she gasped. Someone saw me access the files. Riggs slashed my tires, my apartment, ransacked. She held up her badge. They suspended me. Computer crimes. I barely escaped before they came to arrest me. Darius secured the perimeter. Compromised, Marcus confirmed. We need to move. Within 20 minutes, the team had relocated to a hunting cabin on the edge of town, one of Bennett's old safe houses. Colonel Winters appeared on the laptop screen, her expression grim. We cracked the obsidian fence files, she said. And it is worse than we thought. She pulled up the list. The Pentagon had been tracking high-performing black officers, those who inspired loyalty, those who could challenge the system. How many? Elijah asked. 47, Winters replied. You were number one, the most respected, by troops and civilians. Elijah leaned back, stunned. He had given his life to the military, and it had marked him as a threat. Who authorized this? Angela demanded, joining via secure line. That is the problem, Winters said. Multiple signatures, both parties, across administrations. It was never ideological, it was institutional. Elijah's jaw tightened. I want a meeting. Lutz, Chase. Secure facility. Today. Hours later, inside a government complex in Richmond, Elijah sat across from Admiral Lutz and Senator Arlen Chase. Tension crackled in the air. These are explosive claims, Chase began, voice cautious. They are not claims, Elijah said. He slid the documents across the table. And you signed the annual renewal in 2015. Chase went pale, but stayed composed. It was presented as leadership tracking. Nothing suggested racial profiling. Because plausible deniability was built in, Lutz added, her eyes scanning the files. Elijah watched them both. They had motives to cover this up, but they also had power. And now, they were in the game. If this is handled right, I walk away from it, Elijah said, voice steady. Effective immediately, I am taking extended leave. No operational duties, no contact. Senator Chase and Admiral Lutz exchanged glances, stunned by what sounded like surrender. A wise decision, Chase said carefully. The military appreciates your discretion. I am sure it does, Elijah replied, standing. Now I need your word. Any investigation into these fabricated embezzlement charges will be handled with the same discretion. They nodded. Outside, Colonel Winters waited near the car. Did they bite? Hook, line, and sinker, Elijah confirmed. Chase is already on the phone with media contacts, shaping the story. Lutz is mobilizing internal affairs to find a scapegoat, and through their compromised channels, Vance will hear exactly what he wants, that I have retreated. It was classic misdirection. Show weakness, mask strength. He was not retreating. He was repositioning for war. Back at the safe house, old allies began to arrive. Veterans who once served under Elijah's command. Some wore civilian clothes. Others had never left the uniform, but they had all responded to the same call. The general needs you. No explanations, no hesitation. The air was thick with tension. Among them, Staff Sergeant William Parker, now a construction foreman, stepped forward. You shut us down, he said. We were neutralizing threats before they reached our soil. You were targeting American citizens based on race and religion, Elijah replied calmly. That was never the mission, and it never will be. Parker stared at him. And now? Elijah's voice carried through the room. Now we face something worse. An enemy using that same hate to build a militia inside our borders. An enemy I once called brother. He laid out everything. Project Sentinel. Obsidian fence. The doctored files. The militarized police. The compound. With each fact, doubts gave way to resolve. This is not about me, Elijah finished. This is about defending what we all swore to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. By midnight, even Parker had joined. The cabin transformed into a command post, surveillance teams, strategy boards, firewalls, and fallback plans. Officer James flagged a pattern in police transmissions. Blackout windows aligning with shipments arriving at an old factory. They're moving weapons under the town's nose, Marcus said. Angela's team confirmed something worse. Vance's base was at an abandoned military training facility, the very place where he and Elijah had trained as young officers. He wants to finish it where it began, Elijah said quietly. That night, Elijah stood outside, eyes on the stars. The weight of command settled on him again. Colonel Winters approached, offering coffee. Your team's ready. Angela secured protection for everyone. Reggie has media on standby. All the other officers on the list? Elijah asked. Warned, moved, secured. If Vance strikes at them, we will know. Both their phones buzzed, a video link. Angela's face appeared, bruised, tied to a chair. Behind her, Colonel Dorian Vance stepped into view. Hello, Elijah, Vance said, smiling, coldly. 20 years is too long to wait. I thought we should finish this face to face. The camera panned. Tactical mercenaries filled the background. They were inside the facility. You have 6 hours. Come alone, unarmed, or your wife becomes another casualty of your righteous crusade. The video ended. Elijah stared at the blank screen. His face was still, but inside, his heart thundered. It's a trap, Winters said. Of course it is, Elijah replied. He's isolating me, trying to pull me away from support. We can send in a team. No, Elijah interrupted. Too many risks, too many unknowns. He turned toward the safe house. His team waited. We do this my way. Inside, he addressed them. Vance has Angela. He wants me at the old Barrett facility, alone, unarmed, by dawn. You can't go in alone, Darius said. I am not, Elijah answered. I go in first. You follow. Quiet. Precise. You are my shadows. He turned to Officer James. I need your knowledge of local frequencies. If Riggs mobilizes, we need to know. To Winters, he said, set up a dead man's switch. If I go dark for more than 3 hours, release everything, to media, military, Congress, all of it. Plans moved swiftly, gear checked, timelines mapped, every scenario anticipated. As dawn neared, Elijah changed into civilian clothes, no armor, no weapons, only his wedding ring and military ID. This is not goodbye, he told his team. This is the next phase. He drove toward the training ground, where it had all started. The rising sun bathed the land in gold, but for Elijah Brooks, this day would be lit by something more than sunlight. It would be lit by reckoning. The Barrett training facility rose, like a rusted fortress on the horizon. Low-slung buildings wrapped in razor wire, its Cold War bones still intact. As Elijah approached, the front gate scanned him. Cameras tracked his every move. The gate swung open without a word. He stepped from the vehicle with hands visible. Armed guards swarmed him, weapons drawn, frisking him hard before escorting him into the compound. Long, silent corridors followed. Once these halls trained America's finest. Now they served something darker. In the central command room, he saw him, Colonel Dorian Vance. Older, scarred, but with that same cold fire in his eyes. For the first time in 2 decades, they stood, face to face. Welcome back, General, Vance said, almost smiling. Let's finish what you started. As Elijah walked deeper inside, the past clung to every wall. He remembered training drills until midnight, designing missions that shaped careers, mentoring young soldiers. Now the facility was a web of surveillance and tripwires, a fortress, and Vance was the spider. A monitor flickered on. Angela. She sat in a steel chair, wrists bound, eyes covered, but posture unshaken. Shoulders high, chin lifted. Even blindfolded, her strength filled the room. Elijah's chest tightened. Pride, fear, and fury churned within. "She is a civilian," he said quietly. Vance stepped into the room, dressed in black tactical gear. His frame was built like a weapon. "There are no civilians in this war," he said. "Only combatants and casualties." He gestured toward a table set with 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey. Maps lined the walls, red pins stabbing across the country. "Drink," Vance said, pouring both glasses. "You always liked bourbon." "I prefer my wife alive," Elijah answered. Vance pushed the glass forward. "She stays breathing, as long as you listen." Elijah took the glass but did not drink. He needed time. He needed Vance to talk. And he needed Angela to hear. The transmitter inside Elijah's belt buckle, a hidden mic, was sending audio to Angela's smartwatch. It was a gift from years ago, custom modified with a comms chip. If she was awake, she would feel the vibration. 3 hours, northwest corridor, pipe breach. "I am listening," Elijah said. Vance sat. His voice dropped. "Did you ever ask how your brother really died in Kandahar?" The words hit like a gut punch. Michael Brooks, Elijah's younger brother, a medic killed during Operation Kingfisher. "He died serving," Elijah replied, eyes narrowing. "No," Vance said. "He died because you sent him in without backup. You pushed the mission forward. The Taliban hit the medical post. My brother, Eric, died next to yours." Elijah's breath caught. He had never known. Vance leaned in. "You chose the mission over the men. They promoted you for it, and left the rest of us behind." As he spoke, Elijah subtly shifted his body, keeping the signal strong, repeating the code. "You have carried that for 20 years, Elijah said. "And now what? Build a militia for revenge?" "This is not revenge," Vance snarled. "This is surgery. America is sick. The military hands out stars for diversity optics. You got promoted because of skin, not skill." Elijah stood. "That is a lie." He turned toward a massive screen filled with personnel files. Photos of Black, Hispanic, and Middle Eastern officers lined the grid. "These are your targets," Elijah said. "Fast-tracked," Vance hissed. "Picked for narrative, not capability." "No. They earned it," Elijah replied. "We earned it, because we bled, led, and delivered." Vance's eyes flared. "You actually believe that?" Outside the compound, Officer James monitored police radio from a concealed post. Colonel Winters and the former unit circled the facility, watching guard rotations and marking weak spots. Inside, Angela worked at her restraints. Her hands trembled, but she was focused. The metal hairpin she had hidden hours earlier was slowly slicing the zip tie. Then she felt it. Faint taps against her wrist. 3 pulses. A pause. Then more. Morse code. Elijah was alive. Hours. Northwest corridor. Water pipe. She blinked, tears soaking the blindfold. Not from fear, but resolve. Back in the control room, Vance stood and led Elijah to a terminal. "This is the future," he said. "You see instability. I see cleansing. We rebuild from the ashes." "You will not get the chance," Elijah said. "You are done." Vance smiled. "We will see." Outside, the countdown had begun. Inside, Angela twisted her wrist free, and beneath the surface of that facility, a reckoning began to rise. Angela saw the monitor flicker again, and she worked faster at her restraints. Back in the command center, Vance pulled up surveillance footage from police stations across the country. One by one, scenes played out. Black citizens detained without cause, many nearly identical to Elijah's own arrest. Each of these was a test, Vance explained, a way to identify officers who obey without question. "That is how we build a loyal force." "A loyal force?" Elijah asked sharply. "You mean a personal militia?" Vance ignored him. "Private defense contractors funded it," he continued. "Companies that lost billions when you restructured procurement. You handed contracts to underqualified, diverse suppliers." "I held them to performance," Elijah snapped. "And combat readiness improved under my watch. That is on record." Vance's lip curled. "Readiness scores declined while inclusion metrics soared. You traded strength for social optics. For nearly an hour, Vance laid out his worldview, a twisted vision where diversity equaled weakness and tradition meant purity. It was not a rant, it was a mission plan. I've heard this narrative before, Elijah said, but never with this kind of backing. So what is your endgame? He asked finally. Martial law? A purge? Then what? Restoration, Vance said simply. We go back to merit, real merit, strategic clarity, and yes, someone has to decide who qualifies. You think that someone should be you? Elijah replied. As they spoke, Elijah kept count of guards, tracked shadows on the walls, and noted when Vance's eyes flicked away from the monitors. One of those monitors showed movement inside the facility's ventilation shaft. Angela. She had escaped her restraints and was crawling through the infrastructure, just as they had practiced. Years of drills at home, under silent threat, had become second nature. I want to see my wife, Elijah said suddenly, cutting Vance off mid-sentence. All in good time, Vance replied. First, your confession. He opened a laptop and spun it toward Elijah. It was recording. You will state that you funneled Pentagon funds to radical groups, that your promotion was part of a social experiment, that you are a fraud, and if I do not, then she dies, and the world watches you abandon her. Another monitor came to life, showing a live connection to multiple military command centers. Officers, former allies, were watching. Your legacy, Vance said, ends today. Elijah studied him. This was no longer the man he had trained with. This was a fanatic, masked as a patriot. You think those stars on my chest were chains, Elijah said. But they were earned. Vance leaned forward. They made you the mascot, the best-behaved prisoner. Elijah lowered his voice. Obsidian fence folds at sunrise. Vance froze. It was not just a phrase. It was a dead man's switch, a code from years ago, built into their original command protocols. If triggered, it would release every classified document Elijah held to news agencies, watchdog groups, and the Pentagon. You would not dare, Vance whispered. I already have, Elijah said calmly. Everything goes public if I do not walk out alive. Sentinel, Obsidian fence, your camps, your forgeries, everything. Vance's eyes burned. You always were 3 moves ahead. He snapped his fingers. Check on the woman. A guard rushed toward Angela's last known position. But on another screen, a new alert appeared. Angela was at a relay station, uploading files into the main server. She had not seen the guard behind her, but she sensed him. She dropped, narrowly, dodging a strike. The baton swung past her head. She rolled and grabbed the closest object, a heavy manual, and slammed it against his knee. He dropped. She moved fast, using a coil of cable to bind his wrists. The struggle damaged the server. Sparks flew. Only part of the upload had completed. Damn it, Angela muttered, yanking the external drive and sliding it into a vent before alarms sounded. Outside, 20 meters away, Officer James and Colonel Winters monitored comms. The Pentagon stand-down order just hit, Winters said. Everything happening in Harrison Falls is now off the record. Officially, this never existed. Then I am not an officer, James said, removing her badge. Just a citizen helping a friend. Winters nodded, unclipping her own insignia. Same here. One by one the others followed, men and women stripping rank for conscience. Only one hesitated, Grayson Pike, a sniper, retired, quiet. My family, he said. Stay clean, Winters offered. We need someone outside if this collapses. But Pike shook his head. No, he said, strapping his rifle across his chest. The general never left anyone behind, and he was not going to start. Now. I am not starting now, Pike said, checking his rifle. And if someone needs to make that shot, I am the one who can. Meanwhile, journalist Reggie Mathesy worked from a secure location, feeding encrypted packets to trusted sources. His editor had doubted the story. A military conspiracy targeting black officers felt far-fetched. But when Reggie released a carefully selected preview of the Obsidian Fence documents, the internet caught fire. Within hours, Iran Obsidian Fence was trending worldwide. Military forums exploded with anonymous testimonies. Officers shared experiences of unexplained demotions, unusual surveillance, and silent career sabotage. The pressure reached Washington fast, forcing Pentagon officials to publicly acknowledge legacy monitoring programs, while denying any ongoing operations. Inside the Barrett facility, Elijah was escorted at gunpoint into a locked room. Sparse, metal bed, no windows, reinforced door, just a single ventilation grate near the ceiling. He was not alone long. A young black man in tactical gear entered, carrying a food tray. No insignia. But his bearing was military. "Place it down and leave," Elijah said. The man hesitated, then sat the tray down and leaned in. "Tyler," he whispered, "I read your real file. You saved my father's unit in Mosul. Command wanted to leave them. You went in anyway." Elijah's eyes narrowed. "Staff Sergeant Jackson?" Tyler nodded. "He made it home. Had me 3 months later." He glanced toward the door. "I am not with them." "Not really. I thought this was reform. But this is something else." "I need to find my wife," Elijah said. Tyler pulled a folded map from his vest. "There is a Cold War tunnel system, evacuation route. I can get you to the hatch, but after that, you are on your own." Elijah memorized it quickly, then handed it back. "Why risk this?" "Because my dad told me there are 2 kinds of officers. Those who wear the uniform, and those who serve what it represents. He said you were the second kind." Guided by Tyler, Elijah moved through hidden corridors, avoiding patrols. As they neared the hatch, alarms blared. "They found you," Tyler said. "Probably your wife too." Above, chaos erupted. Vance saw Angela's empty chair on a monitor, then Elijah's empty room. "Find them," he screamed. "Shut every door. Activate perimeter lockdown." Outside, Colonel Winters and Officer James launched their infiltration. Using the chaos, Elijah's team breached the outer fence in waves, splitting guard attention across the compound. Inside the tunnels, Elijah pressed forward through darkness. At a fork not marked on the map, he heard something. Footsteps. He tensed, then saw her, Angela, covered in dust, hard drive clutched in her arms. "You're 2 hours early," she whispered, managing a small smile. He pulled her into a fast, tight embrace. "Tyler?" she asked. "He's buying us time." Above ground, Tyler triggered alarms in different zones, sending guards chasing shadows. But one man spotted him. "You are not authorized for this area." Tyler ran, drawing pursuit toward the east wing. He ducked into a comms room and barricaded the door. Through reinforced glass, he saw them, Elijah and Angela, emerging from a hidden exit across the courtyard. They saw him too. Elijah turned and saluted. Tyler nodded once, then let himself be taken. Inside the facility, Officer James navigated past traps and tripwires using her police training. In the east corridor, she met up with Winters. "Elijah?" Winters asked. "No sign, but I found their comms hub." Together, they pushed forward until they were ambushed. In the gunfight, Winters was captured and restrained in front of a camera. Colonel Dorian Vance stepped into view. Well. Dana Winters, the Pentagon's troubleshooter, betraying her orders. "I follow the oath, not the orders," she replied, voice calm. Vance struck her hard across the face. "You have no idea what's coming." Winters, bleeding, smiled. "Neither do you." Then, the loudspeakers across the compound crackled to life. Elijah's voice echoed through every hallway. "Attention all personnel," he began, voice calm, commanding, and clear. "This facility has been compromised. Your leader, Colonel Vance, is under federal investigation for treason, conspiracy, and unauthorized militant activity." Every screen flickered. Surveillance feeds, security terminals, Vance's own command center. Angela's damaged upload had not been complete. But it was enough. Across the facility, some guards hesitated. Others removed earpieces. A few dropped their weapons altogether. "Make your choice," Elijah said. "You took an oath, just like I did. You decide if it still means something." And just like that, the war for truth had a voice. And it was no longer fighting alone. "This is General Elijah Brooks." His voice echoed through the speakers. "The facility has been compromised. All surveillance footage and classified records of illegal operations are now transmitting to military command channels." In the control room, Vance lunged for the console, but it was too late. Angela's hard drive had triggered a system override. The facility's stolen military-grade satellite uplink, still coded to Elijah's command profile, had recognized the source and obeyed. How? Vance demanded, turning to Winters. You forgot who wrote the security protocols, she answered coldly. Brooks did. You are trying to weaponize a system he built. On every screen, a storm of data poured out. Then a single document took over, an official authorization form for Project Sentinel, bearing Senator Arlen Chase's signature. Below it, directives targeting successful black officers for enhanced scrutiny and career interference. Vance's entire network was unraveling. He bolted from the room, sprinting toward the strategy center. Slamming his hand against a control panel, he activated the facility's deadliest failsafe. Red lights flashed. A computerized voice filled the air. Facility self-destruct sequence initiated. You have 10 minutes to evacuate. This is not a drill. If I die, Vance said to the empty room, his face flickering red. Everything burns. Chaos erupted. Elijah's team, Vance's men, all scrambled to evacuate. Officer James freed Colonel Winters and fought their way through smoke-filled corridors. Outside, near the edge of the compound, Elijah and Angela heard the alarms. They knew exactly what it meant. But instead of running, they turned back. There were people still inside, evidence still at risk, and one man still unpunished. Through a hallway window, Elijah spotted Vance in the strategy room clawing at files, their eyes locked. General and Colonel, brothers in arms, now enemies in a war of ideals. Elijah crashed through the door. Vance met him head-on. You think your stars make you righteous? Vance roared, striking hard. They make me responsible, Elijah countered, blocking and returning fire. You were always the puppet, Vance spat. And you were always the infection. Elijah grunted, twisting Vance's wrist and sending his weapon skidding across the floor. A stray bullet hit the console. Sparks exploded. The countdown accelerated. Angela arrived seconds later, sprinting to the controls. She input the partial override code Elijah had whispered earlier. It worked, barely. The timer slowed, but did not stop. We have 5 minutes, she shouted. Elijah and Vance clashed again. Raw fists, elbows, knees. No tactics now, just will. When Vance drew a blade, Elijah disarmed him with one brutal motion and dropped him with a final, precise strike. Panting, Elijah stood over his fallen adversary. He lifted Vance onto his shoulder. We do not leave anyone, he said. Not even him. They ran through collapsing hallways, dodging debris and flames. Winters and James directed the final evac as the core of the building began to implode. Just as the last team cleared the perimeter, the Barrett facility exploded behind them. A pillar of smoke and flame rose into the dawn sky, the old order crumbling at last. Daybreak lit the scorched landscape. Emergency vehicles lined the ruins, their lights flashing blue and red. Medics moved between the wounded. Angela sat apart, working furiously on her tablet. The explosion had corrupted some data, but enough remained to tell the world what had happened. Nearby, Winters coordinated with Pentagon allies via secure satellite phone. We've got 5 minutes, she said. Homeland Security's rolling in from Richmond. Full containment protocol. Angela did not look up. I am trying to finish the transfer. The encryption's holding. Speed is the problem. Elijah knelt beside Vance, now zip-tied and unconscious. Marcus and Darius stood guard. Darius approached. Sir, those override codes. You knew they would work? I did not, Elijah admitted. Angela and I built emergency protocols, personal codes we would both recognize. He looked over at her, pride in his eyes. She only had part of the code, just enough to buy us time. Officer James jogged over, uniform torn and covered in ash. Riggs is inbound, 5 miles out. He's mobilizing local PD to lock down the scene. That complicates things, Elijah said calmly. They had planned for more time. That time was gone. We need to split, Winters advised. Different exfil points. Regroup later. No, Elijah said. We finish this together. He turned to James. Do Riggs officers use body cams? Standard issue. Required to activate them. On all ops. Good. Let them film what they find. As if on cue, Vance stirred. His eyes opened, glassy and confused. Then they focused. Elijah stood over him, not with anger, but with something worse. Pity. You should have left me, Vance croaked. That, Elijah replied, has always been the difference between us. Vance closed his eyes. You won this, battle, he whispered. But the war continues. Elijah said nothing. He did not need to. The world would speak now. There are others who believe as I do, Vance said through clenched teeth. Men with power, with conviction. I am counting on that, Elijah replied, because now they will be dragged into the light. A sudden explosion rocked the eastern wing of the facility. Ruptured gas lines ignited by the earlier detonation. The blast sent soldiers and debris flying. Flames reached for the sky. In the chaos, Vance rolled from his guards and bolted toward the tree line, bound hands swinging. Elijah took off after him. Marcus followed. The terrain shifted. Fast, dense forest, uneven ground, sinkholes, roots. Vance ran like a man with nothing to lose. He's heading for the emergency cache, Marcus shouted. Weapons! Supplies! The warning ended as gunfire echoed through the woods. Elijah and Marcus hit the ground, diving behind a massive fallen oak. He's armed, Marcus said. Probably reached the weapons locker. I have 3 mags and transponders, Vance shouted from the darkness. Enough to hold you until reinforcements arrive. There are no reinforcements, Dorian, Elijah answered calmly. Your network is collapsing. Your allies are cutting ties. Chase is already issuing denials. You think this was built on one senator? Vance barked out a bitter laugh. You have no idea how deep we go. As Marcus circled around through cover, Elijah kept him talking. Every second mattered. The longer they stalled, the more time the secure servers had to finish uploading the evidence. This country was built on order, on hierarchy, Vance said, on natural leadership. You mean leadership that looks like you, Elijah replied. But our oath was to defend the Constitution, for all of us. We the people, Dorian, not just the ones you approve of. A shift in the underbrush. Movement. Then, from closer than expected, Vance's voice. You know what happens to men like me in prison. Men who know what I know. You will get a fair trial, Elijah said. You wanted your truth out. There, now the world hears it. A beat of silence, then a single gunshot echoed. Elijah surged forward, weapon raised. He found Vance slumped against a tree, blood darkening his shirt. The colonel had turned his weapon on himself, choosing death over justice. Marcus appeared, face grim. He was never going to let you win. Not all the way. Elijah knelt beside Vance's body, checking for a pulse he already knew was gone. He thought this was about denying us justice, Elijah said quietly. He never understood. This was never about him. They carried Vance's body back toward the clearing. Angela looked up from her tablet. Her expression said everything. The transfer had finished. The evidence was safe. The truth could never be buried again. As Elijah and Angela emerged from the trees, a new threat approached. Black SUVs with government plates, Homeland Security, stenciled on the doors. Leading the team was a senior official Elijah recognized. General Brooks, the man called, hands raised and visible. By order of the Secretary of Defense, you and your team are to be taken into custody, pending investigation into unauthorized actions and destruction of federal property. Elijah stepped forward, team flanking him. On whose direct authority? Secretary of Defense, sir. Colonel Winters stepped in. I want to see those orders, Agent Taylor. The air thickened. Helicopters circled above, news crews filming everything. I'll go with you, Elijah said, removing his gear and raising his hands. My team acted under my command. Any charges belong to me alone. Angela grabbed his arm. Elijah. It's the right call, he said softly. The evidence is out. Now we uphold the law we swore to protect. Before Taylor could respond, Winter's comms buzzed. She listened, then turned with authority. Stand down, Agent Taylor. New orders from the Joint Chiefs. General Brooks and his team are to be escorted to secure Pentagon facilities. For debrief, not detention. Taylor hesitated. I need verification. Check your secure channel, Winters replied. As he did, she turned to Elijah. Reggie's broadcast went viral. Obsidian Fence is a political firestorm. The Joint Chiefs are pivoting. Fast. They're trying to look like the heroes, Elijah said. Politics, Angela added. This time it works in our favor. As Homeland Security led them toward transport vehicles, cameras swarmed the perimeter. Reporters shouted. General Brooks, were you kidnapped? Is this connected to your arrest? Reggie Mathisi stood near the front, streaming it all live. Elijah paused. Angela joined him. He turned to the cameras. What happened here was not an accident. It was exposure, a cancer inside our institutions, one that targeted qualified officers because of race. That ends now. He looked back at the ruined facility, flames still licking the sky. This fire, he said, is not chaos. It is the end of secrecy and the start of accountability. As Homeland Security established a tight perimeter, Officer Emily James remained behind, overseeing the transfer of the scene to federal control. Among the arriving officers was Sergeant Riggs. His face turned pale as he realized the scale of the operation he had been part of, and what it had become. "Officer James," he said stiffly, "I believe you are currently suspended, and I believe you are under federal investigation for civil rights violations," she replied, calm and unshaken. She held up her phone, a Department of Justice notification already displayed. "This is my formal statement," she added, "that I witnessed you participate in a conspiracy to violate the constitutional rights of General Elijah Brooks." The moment hung between them. Then the cuffs clicked shut. As Riggs was read his rights by federal agents, James watched silently. This time, the system worked, because people refused to be silent. In Washington, the response was swift. The president addressed the nation, offering a formal apology to General Brooks and announcing immediate investigations into Obsidian Fence, Project Sentinel, and all similar surveillance operations targeting minority service members. Senator Chase was removed from all committee roles. His campaign collapsed as reporters uncovered years of coordination with Vance's operation. Across military branches, orders were issued to audit promotion systems and disciplinary histories for traces of bias. For the first time in decades, change was not only possible, it had begun. 3 weeks later, life had moved on, but not for Elijah. At a quiet cabin by Lake Mitchell, miles from any major town, he found something close to peace. He sat on the dock, a fishing rod in hand, the still surface of the lake mirroring a rare calm. The cabin had no internet, barely any phone service, just quiet. A small porch cluttered with old radios gave him something to tinker with. A lost hobby, slowly returning. Inside, a framed photo sat on his desk. One side showed him and Angela smiling, the other, Tyler Matthews, the man who risked everything for truth. Tyler had been granted immunity in exchange for full testimony. His evidence would help dismantle the last remains of Vance's network. Tires crunched the gravel. He did not turn. He recognized the rhythm of her footsteps. Angela sat beside him, dressed casually for once, jeans instead of court clothes, a folder replacing her usual briefcase. "Good news," she said. "The military review board is finished. Every officer named in the Obsidian Fence files will receive formal apologies and financial compensation." Elijah nodded, eyes still on the water. "And the ones who never made it high enough to be targeted?" Angela held his hand. "That's phase 2. A full review of promotion practices across every branch, with civilian oversight." He nodded, again. "It's not perfect, but it's movement," she said. They sat in silence. Angela had become the public face of the effort, the voice demanding answers. Elijah had chosen a quieter role. He knew that lasting change required more than one man's story. "There's more," Angela said. Emily James was reinstated, promoted to detective, offered a position in internal affairs. "She'll be good at it," Elijah said softly. "She asked about you," Angela added. "Said she's starting her first investigation with Harrison. Falls PD Riggs is already under review. Every arrest he made is being re-examined." Elijah's fishing line twitched. He let it be. "And Reggie? Pulitzer nomination," Angela replied. "But he's struggling. Death threats, nightmares, PTSD. "I'll call him tomorrow," Elijah said. 2 days later he did. He found Reggie at a small cafe in DC near the post offices. The journalist's usual spark was dimmed. Eyes hollow, voice quiet. "General," Reggie said, standing. "Just Elijah now," he replied. They talked for hours. Not about the investigation, but about what came after. How to sleep when your mind refused to rest. The thin line between awareness and fear. By the time they stood, Reggie stood taller. "The truth has a cost," Elijah said, "but silence costs more." Reggie nodded. "I'll remember that." 1 week later, another visitor. Colonel Dana Winters, now officially retired. She arrived with a small box and a sealed envelope. Couldn't let you hide forever, she joked, eyeing the cabin. Nice place. They drank coffee on the porch and spoke of ripples, the slow reckoning moving through the military, the quiet shifts in leadership, the questions finally being asked. I brought you something, Winters said, handing him the envelope. Found it in a secure archive. Inside was a single sheet, a list of signatures. Officers who had once served under Elijah, some now in high positions themselves. At the bottom, a simple line. If you ever want to lead again, we will follow. Elijah folded the paper, tucked it, inside the same frame beside Tyler and Angela, and for the first time in months, he smiled. Elijah folded the letter from his former team, the final line still echoing in his mind. If you ever want to lead again, we will follow. He placed it gently into his shirt pocket. Thank you, he said softly. Winters gave him a quiet nod. Just so you know where you stand, she said. When you are ready. After she left, Elijah made one final drive to Harrison Falls. The town looked the same, but it felt different. The police station now sat empty, shut down, pending a full state-led overhaul. The mayor's office was vacant too, Howard Wilson having resigned ahead of mounting federal charges. Elijah walked slowly through the quiet streets. Some residents recognized him. A few nodded with respect. Others looked away, eyes full of guilt or regret. At Murphy's Gas and Go, the place where it all began, a new clerk now stood behind the counter. The conspiracy-driven Frank Downey had been among the first arrested in the federal sweep. The place, once filled with tension, now just looked ordinary. Back home, Angela was deep into a new project, one she had dreamed about for years, a memoir titled Invisible Stars, chronicling the erased stories of black military heroes whose contributions had been silenced, forgotten, or erased. She asked Elijah to write the foreword. I am not a writer, he protested, and I do not want to be a symbol. You already are, she said gently. The only question is whether you will help shape what that symbol means. In a federal detention center, Sergeant Riggs received a visitor. Not a threat, not a trap. Just a civil rights attorney representing multiple victims of the same treatment Elijah endured. Riggs had expected confrontation. Instead, the attorney handed him a stack of files and a choice. Cooperate with federal investigations into systemic abuse, or face every count alone. The weight of what he had been part of finally began to settle. Across the country, the ripple effects of Harrison Falls spread. The military rewrote leadership training to include institutional, bias case studies. Police departments implemented new review boards. Defense contractors faced increased scrutiny of their lobbying and hiring practices. In a high-security federal prison, a single envelope reached inmate 2477891, once known as Colonel Dorian Vance. No return address. Inside, a single page. Elijah's handwriting. You failed because you fought for your anger. I won because I fought for people. When you are ready to remember what service truly means, I will be waiting. Vance read the letter 3 times before tearing it into pieces. But, late that night, he knelt beside the trash can and began piecing it back together. 2 months after the Harrison Falls incident, Elijah received an unexpected offer. Appointment as the first National Defense Ethics Director, a newly created position responsible for reform across every branch of military service. His instinct was to decline. He had found peace. He had nothing left to prove. But before deciding, he made one stop, a modest row house in Philadelphia. Tyler Matthews' mother welcomed him at the door. Inside were framed photos of Tyler in uniform, a son proud to serve. Tyler wrote to me about you, she said, pouring tea into delicate china. Said you were the kind of officer who remembered what the uniform was supposed to stand for. She studied his face. This country needs more leaders like that. I do not know if I can be what they need right now, Elijah said quietly. Mrs. Matthews reached across the table and took his hand. Do not let my son's sacrifice be forgotten. He believed in the change you represent. Her words stayed with him through the flight back to Washington. In the end, Elijah accepted the position. Not for recognition, not for vindication, but because systems only change when those who understand them step inside and rebuild them from within. Was integrity ever about winning, or was it always about standing still, standing firm, when the world tried to bend you? Maybe, Elijah thought, the most powerful weapon was not rank or force. It was principle, unshaken, undeniable. Like and subscribe for more powerful stories of courage and truth. Your support helps these narratives reach the people who need them most.